Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another episode of Merkaba Chakras. Today, I get the privilege to interview a fellow Thai Buddhist teacher, Supawan Green. Now, Supawan teaches about the six senses taught in Buddhism, which all people have the ability to tap into and amplify in the new energies of the fifth dimension. Now, as people deepen their awakening process and ascend their level of energy in their aura fields, they will start fine-tuning their six senses as discussed in Buddhism. Now, learning how to manage these new human skills respectfully and coexist harmoniously with these abilities is a skill that everyone can master. Now, Supawan is here today to explain the Buddhist understanding of being one with your six senses as part of your daily spiritual practice. And she will explain how Tai Chi Gong and various meditation practices can also help harmonize your Merkaba, or that wonderful energy field that you are. So hi, Super One. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited. Before we begin, can you tell us a little bit more about how you got started into becoming a teacher of the Buddhist Dharma?
Oh, okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. Okay. My journey, my spiritual journey started during the students' year. Okay. And that was in 1973, 74. After I came back from America. I must say first that I was brought up in a country that is really, brainwashed. That was during the Vietnam War. Okay, so went to America for 1 year. It's really an eye-opening experience, to see they protest against the Vietnam War. Whereas in Thailand, at that time, I was, 16, 17, they only talk about, Vietnam War, it was justified, that kind of thing. So the view totally, in the opposite. So after I came back, I went straight to university, and during my first year, there was a student uprising in my university. That gave me, and then there was a crackdown on students as well, caused students to die. That gave me a really challenge, time. Make me question what life is all about, because we were quite young and innocent, really. We had goodwill for our country, but why the students were killed? So that is the big question that I try to ask myself. And then I gone through a lot of pain, mental pain, suffering, to see the unjust society of this thing. And good job that I was born in a Buddhist country, you see. So the pain is really, quite tough. Whereas the people that seem to be quite happy to have a democracy, back to the country. But I was totally in the opposite, because I was in the middle of the changing of my life, really. So I went in. I did try to read, the Dharma book, all these things, but I couldn't really understand because of all this, Pali language, the jargon, all these things. But in the end, cut the story short, because of those pain that I experienced during the student year, it really made me, have to find a way how to reduce the pain in my heart. Let's say I went into the temple and then asked the Buddha for help. I said that I know that you can help me, but I cannot understand you. Please help me to have access to your teaching. Help me to understand you. Okay, so I think the Buddha answered to my calling. So despite I could not understand much about the Pali, jargon or this thing, I did have the intention, really strong intention, want to help myself to heal my pain. So I had the teacher who taught me the meditation, even though I could not do it that well, but I persist, I really do it regardless, and that led me to quite a few of extraordinary spiritual experience during my third year university. In Thailand we have 4 years university, and one massive spiritual experience happened on the dock when I was crossing the river, the Chapia River, to my university. I experienced what I called can I just use my prop just to show you? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So according to the Buddha, we have 5 components, right, to make up this body and mind. Okay. So we got the body, we got the thought, memories, and feelings, and then we got the consciousness. So I want to talk about this consciousness and our thoughts and feelings. Before, to most of the people, our thoughts, this is thoughts and feelings. Okay, I represent with this bottle, and this is a consciousness, which I call a mental self. So to most people who walk the street, their thoughts and feeling and their consciousness or mental self, they are together, sticky. They stick together like this in one entity, and you just don't know what is what. However, on that pier, on that very day, I experienced these 2 things just separated.
Oh, so you had a moment where all of a sudden your consciousness and your body, you had an out-of-body experience, or
It
how do you
wasn't
explain
an
it?
out-of-body experience. It wasn't. I had an out-of-body experience before in the bed. Okay. But that is purely on the mental level. I stood there on the pier, okay, and I could see that my thoughts and feeling was separated. There's my thought and feeling was separated, okay, from my consciousness, which was something that I have never seen before, okay, and gave me this really massive freedom that I have never experienced before. I said, oh my God, what is that? Okay, so this experience, although it lasted only 5 minutes,
That's a
I
long
was
time in spiritual terms.
yeah, I was frozen on the pier. The boat came, the ferry came and left and came and left, but I didn't want to move because this experience, it was so, oh gosh, there was no word to describe that. Okay, it just pure freedom, ultimate freedom. It's just so wonderful. Okay, and then gradually it came back again. So I lost it. However, I had that experience under my belt, and I begin to understand, Krishnamurti, who always talk about the observer and the observed. That was the very first time that I truly understood, his teaching. So that was 5 minutes on the pier. Okay, and then later on, about another 8 months while I was in my 4th year university, which there was another crackdown, but before that, I had this thing happen again, but this time it lasted 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
Oh,
So,
now let me ask you that really quick. So your first spiritual experience, Supawan, that led you to being a Buddhist Dharma teacher of the Dharma, you had an experience at the pier where it was 5 minutes of seeing yourself as the observer and also
yeah,
the one
this is the
participant.
observer. This is the observed.
Yeah,
The
so
subject and the object. Yeah.
yeah, it's a subject and object. So you saw, okay, and then the second time happened. It was 6 months. Now, like, What is it like to have a spiritual experience for 6 months straight? That's a very long time.
Let me explain this. What happened on that day that I was lying in bed, okay, toward the evening. I came back from university. I was tired, lying in bed. And then by the time that I woke up, so by then, let's say that by then I had the habit to meditate daily, and especially when I lie down. Okay. And prior to that, I have visited so many forest monastery. I engaged in the retreat, the spiritual retreat, and I did meditation, all the time. I say, a lot. Try to get over, my pain, all these things. And then on that day, when I lie down, I watch my breath. Okay. And then I fell into a deep sleep. And then when I was waking up, the room was totally dark. Okay. Totally dark. And then I thought I must get up, to help my sister downstairs do some cooking. As I was pushing myself up from the position of lying down to sitting upright on the bed, in that between posture, once again, the experience was just like this. My mental self, consciousness, which I call my mental self, okay, true self, and then thoughts and feelings, which I call Tom and Jerry, okay. So at that moment in between the posture, I experienced this thing happen again, disconnect and go beyond.
And I said, go beyond
oh my God, it happened again. And I really stunned. I sat on the bed for quite a while, try to absorb what is happening. And this time, the intensity was much more than on the pier. That 5 minutes, was much more. Okay, I just experienced this most wonderful, out of the world freedom inwardly. It's just freedom. And when I begin to use my thought, I keep on telling myself that you're lying. This thing is just false. This thing is just totally false and fake and not real. The only thing that is real is this thing, consciousness. So what's happened to me is that this was the pure consciousness. That it wasn't being tainted by this thing. Because this is a thought and feelings. Okay. Before that, my life before that, apart from that 5 minutes on the pier, okay, I walk along the road with this, my thoughts and feeling and my consciousness, they become one. I never know that there is a subject and there is an object. Not until what happened on the pier. It just begin to separate. Okay. Well, in Buddhism, I don't. Do you know some Thai language?
I not very well, but go on.
Okay. In Thai language, translated from Pali, the enlightenment of the Buddha we call lut, pon. Lut is mean disconnect. Pon it means go beyond. Okay. Lut, pon is mean disconnect and go beyond. So that you are fully enlightened, have this, experience this most wonderful freedom from our own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, I definitely get that. It's the leading edge experience is consciousness integrated into the physical body.
Yeah.
And you can integrate it or you can
it's integrated. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's taken over like this. You see, if with the prop, you can easily say. So that experience really, suppose if I was on the, let's say, a building with 10 floor, before 5 minutes on the pier, let's say I was on the ground floor. Okay. After that 5 minutes on the pier, although the this experience was, disappear within 5 minutes and come back to this again, I kind of know, I still remember that. I still remember this experience that, oh, it was like this. This is what they call the freedom. Okay, so when it come back to this, let's say that I move up to floor 3. So I could see, see a bit more scenery, what's going on down there. Whereas if you're on the ground floor, you couldn't see anything. Okay, but with this 6 months on that evening, it was very much like, I was catapulted to the 9th or the 10th floor. Okay, let's say the 8th of the 9th floor, because the understanding is not come in the form of thoughts or theory or Dharma word. They are more of the actual experience that I was totally submerged at that time. The freedom, especially the freedom. And I still remember that on the next morning, I went to the market, which is a very busy place. People, bustling everywhere. And I just trying to understand what's going on. And the most obvious thing that I can still remember is that every time that I want to say something, there is another thought tell me that lying, you're lying. I just could not say anything because every word is lying. It's not the real truth. This is the truth.
So
The
question.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like you ask for Buddha or consciousness to kind of reveal to you your answer to the struggle with what was going on with the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff, But what was shown to you in these two spiritual experiences, one was longer than the other, was that you got out of your body as Supawan Green and you went in and integrated with the consciousness of the universe.
I don't want to say that I got out of my body because all these things is still happen within this
body, but your perspective went to the consciousness.
It just the experience is just so potent, so strong, and then help me to understand. Anyway, to cut the story short, I kind of experienced that freedom for a good 6 months. I still remember that 4 months gone. It means that, so what happened inwardly is that I just feel the freedom that before that, prior to this, you kind of get annoyed, get agitated, get angry, get, unpleasant feeling, all these things. But during that 6 months, there is nothing. Okay, so this is thoughts and feeling. Okay, the polarization. Okay, nothing that can touch this part. This part is what I call our true self, a mental self, a true self, a pure consciousness. Okay, and this is the part that come to hit our true self and give us the pain, the mental pain, the suffering. So what happened in that 6 months is that these two things are separated. This is the subject, this is the object. Although there are something like this, but I can manage to keep it at bay. And this thing, which I give the analogy as Tom and Jerry. You see, Tom and Jerry. So Jerry cannot hit Tom, cannot come near Tom at all. So therefore, inwardly, I was totally free and blissful all the time.
Right.
However,
so you kind of got like a 10,000 foot view of your experience from consciousness view.
Yeah. You wisdom wise, it's very much like when you're on the 8th or 9th floor, you can see the view, downstairs in the valley, and then you can get all the connection, understand everything.
But But when you're on the first floor, you're just struggling with the first floor and your challenges in the first floor. But when you're up at higher levels, you see
Yeah.
all of it and you're going, okay,
Oh,
stop
yeah.
struggling so
Yeah.
much because there's a flow to this.
That's it.
Right. Now, let me ask you this.
Mm.
You know, what is the concept of the Buddha's sixth sense and how is it
So,
different from the Western concept?
okay.
From your spiritual, you know, experience and
So from that experience, I learned a lot, okay, and helped me to understand what the sixth sense means. Let me clarify this first. When you talk about having the sixth sense in the Western concept, they only mean a sizable, you know, a group of people who are psychic, okay, who can read your mind, read your thought, who can forecast the future, or who can communicate with the entity in another dimension.
right.
So we say that those people are psychic or having the sixth sense. But according to the Buddha, that is not the meaning in Buddhism at all. To the Buddha classed every single human being as being with six senses all the same. And that we are using our sixth sense every day, all the time, but we don't know. You see, this area of knowledge is very cloudy, it's very ambiguous. So I want to make it very clear to you.
Right.
So, yeah.
And just about that, and I completely agree with you that in the Western concept, because you say, according to the Western concept, commonly only a small amount of human race has the ability to use their six senses. That's the Western perspective. And in the Eastern perspective, it's like, no, everybody has six senses. You're just not aware that you're using it. You're not aware that it's there. You're not tuned in, and you're not aware of how to manage it, perfect it, and amplify it. So it's a normal aspect of, you know, Eastern viewpoint of living spiritually. But in the West, what I found very common as well when it comes to six senses, since some people tune into it and many others think it's they're kind of scared of their six senses. They think it might be an aspect of like evil or whatever. So whatever they use to scare away working on their six senses, and for the people who use their six senses and hone in on it in Western thought, sometimes they get amplified and put on a pedestal to be special, to be more than everybody else, to be looked up to. How can you address that difference? Because in the East, everybody's the same. In the West, oh, if you have six senses and you're using it, you're better than everybody else. You're on a pedestal, you know. So how can you address those two different viewpoints about six senses?
Yeah. Before I go to that, can I just clarify exactly what sixth sense is? Okay, let me just explain this first. That in fact you are using your sixth sense now. Everyone is using it now. So I mean, we have the video as well. Vaughn, do you mind just to use your hand? Okay, tap onto your face. Tap tap tap. Okay. If you're watching at home, I like you to really, you know, tap on something. Okay, tap on something. Okay, right. Let's have a look. I'm a very practical person. I like you to see. Okay, I'm tapping myself. So I'm going to ask you a question. Very simple question. The tingling in your face after the tapping. Okay, this very moment, which sense that you are using to perceive what you have in here? Are you using your eyes? Obviously not.
Touch.
You're not using your ears. You're not using your nose. You're not using your tongue. You think that you are using your hands? Go on, try using your hand to touch. Can you experience that pain in there?
Yeah, but isn't that just your skin sensing? Isn't that feeling?
You see? So try to follow. You see, when you are not using your five senses to experience that tingling, that pain within your skin, even though you put your hand, you know, to stroke your hand, you will feel the texture of the skin, but not the tingling inside. Can you see? You follow?
Mhm.
Okay. The tingling inside or headache, you know. So, but every one of us perceive the headache or the tingling in here all the same, which means that at this the moment like this, you are using your sixth sense to perceive your headache, your toothache, your stomach ache, or when you clap your hand like this, the pain inside, you are using your sixth sense to perceive, you know, the inward sensation.
Mhm.
Can you see that? So this is the meaning of sixth sense in the Buddha's perspective.
So the Buddhist perspective of sixth sense is just consciousness perceiving and a
You see,
reaction.
the sixth sense is consciousness.
Right.
The sixth sense is consciousness. So let's call the sixth sense or consciousness as your third eye, because it is the additional sense that humanity haven't really recognized. They haven't really recognized, because even though the Buddha said that we have six senses and we use our, you know, the sixth sense all the time. Let me explain this here. This is our, here's another property. Okay. This body, this life form is made up of 5 components. So you got the body, you got the mind. Mind is your thoughts, memories, and feelings. Would you like to share that that picture, Vaughn, please?
Oh, yes.
And then I can explain better, so that you can see Tom and Jerry. Okay, yeah, that's it. So this is the 5 components that make up of a life form. Okay, so what we got: the physical self or the body, and then we got thought, memories, feelings, which I give the analogy as Jerry. Okay, and then we got the consciousness or mental self. So this consciousness, mental self, okay, got its own eye, which is a third eye. And this is our sixth sense. This is our sixth sense. So with this picture, you can see that there are 2 parts, okay? The external world, the world of mass. So you got this physical body as the subject, okay? And then you have your 5 senses there on your physical body, that you experience the world of sight, sound, smell, taste, and texture. And also, you got another set of subject and object, okay? The subject is your consciousness or mental self, which is your true self, okay? The subject which interact with your thoughts, memories, and feelings, or thoughts and feelings. This is another set. So the meaning of the sixth sense in the Buddha's term refer to our consciousness.
Mhm.
And this consciousness is the filter, okay, is the part that allow us to see the external world of sight, sound, smell, taste, and texture. So without this consciousness or our mental self, our true self, there is no world, there is no universe. Okay.
Right. And they've done that in scientific studies. I've seen that in different scientific studies where the person is completely blinded or they're deaf and nobody is touching them, but somebody walks in the room and they can still sense that. And there's no connection to the body. That's their consciousness sensing that. That's their sixth sense sensing that presence.
That's
exactly. So your sixth sense is consciousness, and your consciousness
our
can be seen
sixth
through your
sense
third
is the
eye.
consciousness. And our consciousness, our sixth sense, or let's say we can call it a third eye, I call it the mental eye, whichever word, it doesn't matter. Okay. The problem is that our consciousness, okay, is the core of life. And we view the world through a consciousness. Okay. The world of mass, it won't exist without a consciousness. So there are 4 events that a consciousness doesn't function. Is that when you go to a deep sleep, when you are unconscious, when you are in a coma, or when you're dead. Okay, so in these 4 events, there is no external world, because you need the consciousness there, okay, to view the world. So the point that I need to point out is that this consciousness, or our sixth sense, our third eye, has been hindered by our thoughts and feelings. Okay, so with this picture, I give the analogy as Jerry, these 3 mice. These 3 mice is act very much like the shade, the spectacle, the glasses that put over your third eye or put over your sixth sense. And these thoughts and feelings, or Jerry, in my analogy, is in the state of duality, got the element of yin and yang, okay, of yin and yang. And this create the diversity, the differentiation. Okay, so suppose this is my consciousness of the third eyes, and this is Jerry. Okay, the different color shade. So this is what happened to humanity. The problem is that whenever that your sixth sense or your third eye, okay, has been blocked by your own thoughts and feelings, which is very diverse, you create the matrix.
Right.
You create
so your perspective. So your perspective or your viewpoint on things is the level of consciousness that you create reality. So you create reality through your perspective of how you see
the reality with the consciousness along with your thoughts and feelings. This whole thing.
Right. So when we change our perspective,
reality.
Right.
So the reality and the diversity.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So when in Buddha's term, from your understanding, when we change our perspective on something and we see more through the illusion, we see more for how things are, then the reality has no choice but to change with you. Because your consciousness is changing to a different level. So reality is malleable.
The consciousness, in fact, it doesn't change. The consciousness, its function is to be conscious, that's all. But the part that change is, this is the consciousness, okay? Its function is just to be conscious. But the part that create all this elusive world is our thoughts and feelings. Okay, so this is just like the shade, the different shade that people put on, different opinion, different this and that. So this part is the yin and the yang. Okay, the state of duality that create the diversity in our world. Okay, and this is the part that caused the problem. This is the part that caused the matrix. Okay, the elusive world, the mental holodeck, all these things. Right. So basically, what the Buddha tried to tell us is that we got to try to get rid of this thing, this part, our thoughts and feelings, okay, so that we can allow our pure consciousness to manifest itself. And this is where meditation comes from. Right. This is what vipassana come in, mindfulness meditation come in, Tai Chi Qi Gong come in. So the reason why we got to do meditation is because we need to make these 2 things disconnect and go beyond. Okay, so that we
silence the voices. We need to silence the voices.
Pardon?
We need to silence the voices, our thoughts,
exactly.
All the ego talk that constantly trying to take the space. Mm-hmm.
This part is your ego. Okay, put together is your ego. And this is the part that, you keep on talking in your head, your mental monologue, and this and that, This is create this polarity, okay, the extreme polarity, this part, which caused, massive problem to the world, to humanity. So basically what the Buddha tried to tell us is that why we need to do meditation, so that we can disconnect and let this thing, disconnect our thoughts and feelings from our consciousness, allow our consciousness to be free. Okay, now once this one is free, you will be able to see everything, to see the truth. See the truth is see everything as they truly are.
Right.
Okay,
let me ask you a question. Right. Let me ask you a question. So, as people work on balancing their ego and kind of resting their constant chatter in their head and all that kind of stuff, and really, connect with the consciousness of the light or of, that overall being, their six senses start coming online. So one of the things that's very common in the West, and for people new to the space of their personal awakening, is they get really afraid of it. So how can people not be afraid of the new human six senses as they move further in this process?
They are afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of something that they haven't yet to understand. In fact, this concept of sixth sense is just so common, ordinary, so simple. So simple. It's just what they don't know is that because they don't have, it's just the lack of knowledge, really. The lack of knowledge. Because we all have a sixth sense. This is a sixth sense, life, the core of life. Our consciousness is the core of life. And that part is already our sixth sense, our third eye. So the whole point is that you got to try to understand these two things, which I give the analogy as Tom and Jerry. So basically, our inner self, our sixth sense, as being tempered by our own thoughts and feelings all the time. So this is the reason why we need to do meditation. We need to do mindfulness meditation just to get rid of this. And then you claim your true self back, your inner self back, your freedom back. That's all there is to it. But the problem is that you got to work hard to get to this point.
Right. So if you get to that point, how can we use meditation like Vipassana or Tai Chi Gong, or even bringing our mental self back home? How do we use these tools to develop our six senses even further?
Discipline yourself. Okay, so meditation, Tai Chi Qi Gong, yoga, all these different technique of meditation, the goal is all the same. Technique is different. Okay, everything is right.
So don't get so caught up in the technique that everybody's going to have a different technique to get there.
Many roads that can lead you to Rome. As long as you can get to Rome, that's all that matters.
Okay. I always say there's many ways to get down the rabbit hole. It just, what matters is you got here. So now that they're getting there, what can they do?
What can they do is that you can live your moment. You can live your here and now so wonderfully. So you will be able to, once you get rid of this thing, this yapping in your head all the time, of course you got to plan. When you want to use it, but when you finish, just let them go.
Right.
But to do this, to let them go easily, not to attach to it, you need to train yourself. You need to discipline yourself. You need to put meditation into your daily life. It's just like you need to breathe to make this physical body survive. You need to meditate to make your inner self, your true self survive. Because otherwise, if you don't do it, you'll be like this all the time. And then you'll be living in the matrix, living in the mental holodeck, in the hologram world all the time, which is no fun, because this one is just throw you over the spectrum of emotion, ups and down, and then getting quite exhausted. But once you do meditation, you're able to find the moment that you can disconnect and go beyond from your own thoughts and feelings, and give your inner self, your consciousness, or your sixth sense, really, the real freedom. And this freedom allow you to enjoy the moment of here and now.
Right. Now you say that if our six senses are well cultivated and polished, that the perceptions of our five senses will be more truthful. And it means that the unpolished sixth sense will plunge humans into their elusive world, living in a constant matrix and mental holodeck to never know the truth. So a lot of us are trying to break free from this mental clutter holodeck, this monkey mind existence where we're creating out of unconsciously, out of our own fears and our own mental blocks. So how can people break free from the matrix using their consciousness, using their six senses?
To break free from this thing, what called Jerry, is quite easy. it got to begin with the guided wisdom. You need a guide, a spiritual guide, a teacher who, so in my teaching, really, I need to give people, my student, a bit of theory and a bit of practice. This combination is very important because you can't just, go into a temple, okay, the monk will tell you, oh, sit down and then meditate, watch your breath, like that. What for? You need to explain to them first. So I try to explain to them that the part that mess your life up is our own thoughts and feeling. This is our worst enemy. We have been sleeping with our enemies all the time and we don't know. Because all these things, all this nature, they're energetic, trapped inside, this physical body. That's why my teaching, I need a lot of props and illustration to help you to understand how your mind works. Okay. So basically, if you want to break free from this, you really need to pay attention, okay? Try to understand, the overall picture, what you want. So the target, the destination is the freedom of your consciousness, the freedom of your true self, okay? The freedom of your true self, your mental self. So this part, okay, is your consciousness, your sixth sense, your third eye, your mental self, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. So once you are free from your own thoughts and feelings, this is the part that you can blend into the oneness. This is the oneness. This is our source. Okay, this is the source. Yeah, it's okay. I can. Yeah. So with this picture, I like you to see, clearly that these 5 components. We got our body, we got our mind. So the meaning of mind in the Buddha's term is mean that it means our thoughts, memories, and feelings. Okay, which are the separate entities. Okay, from a consciousness. A consciousness and the mind, there are different functions. The consciousness function is to be conscious, that's all. And this consciousness, I give the analogy as a mental self, an inner self, a true self. So basically, meditation is to try to get rid of all this, clutter, the clutter that make up of Jerry or our thoughts and feelings. You see, with this picture, I like to show you that every sense got to correspond to their own sense object. Okay, like eyes, you got to see sight, ears hear sounds, smell, all this kind of thing. But when you come to your thought and your thoughts, feelings, okay, headache, toothache, stomachache, these are the sense object to your sixth sense or your mental eye. You cannot perceive your headache, toothache with your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. You got to perceive with your sixth sense or your mental eye, your third eye, which is your consciousness. You see, with this, you will understand that we use our sixth sense all the time, but in the way that we don't know. I think, you see, this area of knowledge is still very, very cloudy, very ambiguous. Even the Buddhist monk, we talk about, we just learn by heart that we have 6 senses and we just, memorize it. But come to the actual understanding, I don't think that many Buddhist monks really understand. Understand.
I have seen that, and I would definitely agree. Just because you have monks' robes on does not mean that you fully understand the teachings. But it is a journey. It is a journey, and it is a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey of samsara, but we will all get there together. Now, I want to ask you before we close up. Also, knowing how to develop our 6 senses is critical to the process of ascension in the 5th dimension. And I've said this before, many Buddhists have said this as well. We're already in the 5th dimension. We're already in the higher energies. But people, especially in the West, still don't understand this ancient topic that we have transition. and they're still thinking with the monkey mind. They're still thinking with the five senses and not realizing consciousness and putting consciousness into it. So let me ask you, what tips can you offer to people to begin to recognize the existence of their six senses and develop it properly? Because it's going to happen as we get further into this experience. So don't be afraid, but what can they do to work on those?
This subject about six senses is a massive subject. You see, after 2.5 millennia, humanity still haven't recognized the Buddha's knowledge that humans are being with six senses. Because if the mainstream education can recognize that humans are being with six senses, the change can happen straight away through mainstream education. Okay, so we can teach our children from 5 years old to amplify the sixth sense of their consciousness right away through meditation, through all sorts of technique, yoga, whatever. Just teach them.
Yeah.
Just like that. So this is the only way, to kickstart. It's just the recognition of the Buddha's perspective. You can see that, if just one individual losing their sight, turn blind, the entire world of sight collapse. And this is a massive loss already, just for one individual. Okay? Just for one individual, it's a massive loss.
Right.
And now we are talking about in not recognizing the existence of a sixth sense. Okay? It's a matter of the entire humanity, lost that third eye, lost the sixth sense, lost the additional sense. And there is no word that can describe this catastrophe. This is, oh my God.
We're trying to get back to that indigenous sense.
Nest, you know what I mean?
Right. The thing that I really, I really came to understand, when I was looking at some of your work as well, is that, like we say in Buddhism and in many esoteric traditions, you are a soul having a human experience. However, once the human fully realizes that, then their six senses come online. And again, the leading edge experience is consciousness integrated in the body. So, we have seen masters of our histories realize and understand and do this. And you know who they are: Buddha, Kuan Yin, Tara, Yeshua, Vishnu, all these others in the past. They have done it and they say the same thing. You could do it yourself. So really the answer is, do you want to be a conscious creator of your journey through samsara? And when you do, with that, we all travel the stars and the multiverse in our merkabahs with our six senses. So Supawan, this went by so fast. I blinked and our time went by. So this is very just touching on the light.
This is only touching on the surface.
Touching. So everyone, you're gonna have so much fun going into her work and then tuning into your six senses and amplifying it. So don't be scared. But you can go to her website, en.supawan, SUPAWAN green.com. So, and you can go down the rabbit hole with her teachings. Wonderful stuff there. And with that, Supawan, thank you so kindly for joining us and bringing us this material. And thank you everyone for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, be well and blessings.
Thank you very much, Dawn, for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the fifth dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.